Hi, yes, I am still stuck in the beiges of beige rooms that makes me look as pale as a white wall. But I want to talk about EverQuest, and more specifically about something that was said by the head developer of Monsters and Memories about EverQuest 3. Sometimes it takes a former developer with a sick tattoo sleeve, chilling and developing his own competing classic MMO to crystallize exactly what a legendary MMO like EverQuest needs to go through with their long-rumored EverQuest 3. And it's essentially what they might be doing, kind of, maybe, if we're lucky. Take a listen here to Sean, former EverQuest developer, perhaps better known as A Loving Robot, courtesy of the short made by Class and Cool, linked below. And thank you, Class and Cool, for bringing this up, because if I hadn't seen your short, I would not have seen this clip of Sean.
See, EQ3 has been mentioned a lot after the EQNext debacle. I can't say I'm going to look at EQ3 much. I think the more that the company deviates from...
Okay, wait, but first, before we get really into it, there's one other thing, because what he's going to talk about here, I have a concern that they may know this at Daybreak, they may want to do this, and still might not, and we'll talk about that later.
See, EQ3 has been mentioned a lot after the EQNext debacle. I can't say I'm going to look at EQ3 much. I think the more that the company deviates from basically just reskinning EverQuest and then doing like EverQuest Classic Plus, the more they run into the challenge of what does classic mean, right? Like what does EverQuest mean? Sounds like a visual overhaul, much like the Oblivion remake. Zach, I think that's the smartest move. And the thing is, it's kind of a no-brainer if you've got the cash. They charged a sub for that and got rid of all the bullshit microtrans. That right there would make enough cash for them that they could leverage their learnings from that and their cash to make a true successor, while operating that as a live game that has ongoing additional content being layered into Classic. Daybreak, if you're watching this, if you haven't considered that fact already, shoot me an email and I'll write it up for you in bullet points, and you can do it.
See, this all goes in line with some of what we've already been heard from Jennifer Chan directly regarding the still mostly hush-hush project of a new EverQuest game from its interview with MinMax last year, which essentially boiled down to a remaking of EverQuest with modern gameplay, graphics, and style, but familiar enough that fans will immediately recognize it. For a long time, I've kind of resisted this idea of a remake being the way to go for EverQuest. After all, EverQuest exists as is, and EverQuest 2 was the thing. But I think creating content around MMOs, watching MMOs struggle over the years, has kind of made me reassess that, largely because what I had hoped for with a long-awaited sequel to the sequel of EverQuest was some of the promise of EverQuest Next, a truly next-generation MMO. But I think it's safe to say, especially in the current gaming environment, and more specifically, the MMO environment following, well, the big-budget MMO flameouts over the last few years, a less aggressive a tactic is kinda needed. A tactic that also pleases current fans of the IP, including those who may have lapsed over the years, while also making this a new game that is accessible to new players who may have completely missed the bus with EverQuest and don't want to join a game over 2 decades on with an extremely outdated UI, old graphics that need the nostalgia glasses that I personally love to wear, and just a whole heap of old baggage. It's quite honestly kind of a big thing to ask, to ask someone to just jump in like that if they haven't actually played it before, if they don't have those memories, if they don't have those experiences, if they're unwilling or really to put in the time and effort that it takes to find the enjoyment in the game, because quite honestly, the time and effort to enjoy EverQuest now is quite a bit longer than it was when it first launched, when you could enjoy the game if you played it for 10, 20 hours. Now, all that enjoyment comes much, much later, when you've leveled up and found your friends. A remake of EverQuest, I think, undoubtedly would serve two big purposes. It'd be a hell of a lot cheaper than an entirely brand new MMO, especially if they use an engine they can license instead of building their own. And two, it would answer the call players have been making for going on over a decade plus now for an EverQuest remake. As Sean said, an EverQuest Classic Plus. EverQuest 2 was great in many ways, but it was a huge departure from the original EverQuest in everything from how some classes played, grouped NPCs being linked together, to just actual lore of the game being incredibly different. Now, decades on, it's time we revisit Norath with a new coat of paint. The Oblivion remastered treatment is a very solid reference point because it maintains the soul of what EverQuest was and is. But I mentioned that there might be a reason why Daybreak wouldn't be able to do this, even if they want to, and it all comes down to, well, money. It's because we've already seen this before from Daybreak and from EG7 with Lord of the Rings Online. Lord of the Rings Online was seemingly greenlit for a remaster. They even talked about it more than we've heard so far about EverQuest 3, but it was ultimately canned by EG7 because the investment of a remaster was deemed too costly to provide a return on investment. And therein lies the biggest problem with any of this going forward, and it's an ancient problem dating back as long as games have been around, but perhaps even more so now. The people making the games aren't the ones calling the shots in most cases. It's the people looking at numbers in ledgers. It's why microtransactions seep into everything. It's why a remaster of Lord of the Rings Online was not enough return on investment, instead of thinking, will our players like it? And it's why I worry that the EverQuest IP may eventually face the same boardroom of uninterested executives who decide that instead they should invest in AI or something and kill off an entire MMO and all the institutional knowledge of making the game that comes with it. But for now, we can hope that the sage words of Sean get heard. But if they don't, in the meantime, if you're looking for a classically inspired MMO, why not check out his game? Monsters and Memories, a game that I've covered quite a bit on this channel, but I covered most extensively in a first look review with none other than the fantastically funny Mitch Mannix on this video right here. My name is Red Griffin, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day.